So anyway, we are blessed. Well, do I sound loud or is this just me? Anyway, well, good morning. Good to see you all here. I'm glad you came out in the cold. I know it was tempting to stay in that nice warm bed this morning, but I'm so glad that you actually came out. Well, this is not the talk that I planned on giving. It's funny how that works, you know. During the week, you start out, or actually, I've been thinking about this talk for about a month now, and I was going to come up here and talk about sacred service and about volunteering at the church, which we call Love in Action. And I was hoping that in my talk you would all be so inspired that at the end of the service you would come up to me and say, "Here I am, use me. How can I volunteer?" You know, that was my plan. But then something happened. And that was last Saturday when we met, and 31 of us here from the church, and we discerned our new vision and mission. And I realized it's not about volunteering. It's about something so much bigger than that. It's about being. So yes, last weekend, 31 of us, met in the friendship room and we discerned. And when I say discerned, what I mean is we prayed, we meditated, we held ourselves open to Spirit to guide us in putting together this mission and this vision. And as Reverend Ron Fritz shared last Sunday when he gave the lesson, it was powerful. It was palpable. I mean, we could feel the energy in that room last Saturday when we were working on this. And as he said last Sunday, this mission and vision that we have is probably unique in the unity movement. And Reverend Ron has worked with a lot of churches in developing a vision and a mission, and so he knows. And he said that our vision and mission reflects a higher level of God consciousness than any other congregation he has worked with. Any other congregation. So, once again, our vision is centered as God. Life expresses love, harmony, and abundance. Now that's our vision for the world. He wanted us to picture and to envision what the world would be like if it was perfect. Now, bearing that in mind, this is our vision. And what Ron was really impressed with was that word as. As. Centered as God. Not centered in God, but centered as God. Now, what that's about is claiming our divinity, claiming that we are God expressing in the world. We are the hands and feet of God. We don't see ourselves anymore as children of God. I mean, for years we learned that, we grew up with it, but what happens when children grow up? We are now God in expression in this world. This group claimed it for the world, and they claimed it for this congregation, and they claimed it for their individual selves. So are you ready to join in claiming that for yourself as well? Now, I understand if any of you are here for the first time, you may be thinking, well, that's a very egotistical thing to be stating, that you are God. But no, it's not egotistical. It is a sacred responsibility that we have to see ourselves as that divine presence in the world, expressing in all that we do. Jesus said, when someone has been given much, much will be required in return. And when someone has been entrusted with much, even more will be required. Now, that passage is usually seen to be about money or material goods, that if we have much, we're expected to give much. And that's true. But it's more than about that. It's about seeing the truth of our being, that we are a spiritual being. We are a divine spiritual being, and we need to be able to live in accord with that truth. Now, this is where our mission comes in, because that's when it becomes personal to our church and to our individual selves as well. And our mission is seeing God, seeing everyone as love. We are an inclusive, thriving spiritual center that inspires conscious transformation. Seeing everyone as love. Wow. That's big. That is really big, especially considering what we heard this morning about the beheading of Peter Casey. How do we see everyone as love? And folks, love is another name for God. We grew up believing God is love. So how do we see everyone as love, as God? And how do we see that in ourselves? There is a tribe in Africa that whenever somebody commits a crime, they will take that individual and put him in a circle, and everyone will stand around him, everybody from the village, and they will tell him what they love about him, what is good, what is sacred, what is holy about him. This is the way they punish the people in their tribe who have done wrong. We get what we focus on. We say that every week here. We talk about it. And here is a tribe that we might see as primitive that goes about it in a different way. And when that person stands in the circle and hears all of those incredible things about themselves, they cry, they weep, because they're being reminded of the truth. They are hearing who they truly are. There's a story about a woman, a young couple that moved into a new home, and their first morning there, they looked out the window while they were having breakfast, and the neighbor woman was out in the backyard. She was hanging up her laundry on the clothesline. And anyway, the young woman there was watching this, and she said, "That woman's clothes aren't very clean. Look how gray and dull they are. She must not know how to wash. Maybe she needs a different laundry soap." And every week, this woman would say the same thing. She'd see the neighbor out there, and she'd comment about how dirty this woman's laundry is. Finally, about a month later, she got up, and once again, the woman was hanging up her laundry, and she said, "I just can't believe that this woman," and then she looked again, and she said, "Wait a minute, that laundry looks clean. I wonder, she must have changed laundry detergent or something." And her husband very quietly said, "Well, actually, I got up early today and I washed our windows." And so it is with life. What we see when watching other people depends on the clarity of our window. And our window is our consciousness. The consciousness that we have within us is what determines what we will see in the world. Mother Teresa knew this. She was often said to say that whenever she was tending to the people that she was ministering to and helping to heal, she would say, "This is just Jesus in one of his many disguises. This is Jesus in one of his many disguises. In other words, she saw the Christ. She saw the Christ in everyone that she encountered. Now, she wasn't saying that that was Jesus Christ, but she was seeing the divine in each one of them. She was seeing that they were more than their physical bodies. So, which brings us to the next part of our mission, inclusive. We are an inclusive congregation. That means accepting everyone who comes in the doors, regardless of their religion, their race, their sexual preferences, sexual orientations. It doesn't matter. We accept them. We include them as part of our spiritual family. And thriving. What does it mean to say thriving? What does it mean to you? Well, to me, it means having all the financial resources that we need in this church to work towards our vision and to work towards our mission. It means having our bills paid on time and in full, and plenty of money left over for all the special projects that we have, like our peace garden in the back that we've wanted to do for quite some time. It also means having an enthusiastic group of people who work together to share the principles that we teach and to help one another and to reach out into the outside community and to help others. People tell me, I hear this all the time, that they want to see the church grow. They say, how do we make the church grow? Well, some of you are sitting in a seat out there, and you're looking at something on the seat in front of you, and it's a very clear clue as to how we make this church grow. Who knows what it is? Who's looking at that right now?
Be the change.
Could you, a little bit louder?
Be the change you want to see. Be the change.
Be the change. That's one of them. If you want to see a more powerful, compassionate, loving world, then you need to be passionate, loving, and powerful in the world. What else? There's another chair out there that says something else very specific about how things grow. Love. Love makes everything grow. Because when we put love out there, we attract love to us. So how about putting love in action in this church? Whether it means helping in hospitality, making coffee, and welcoming people into our church in the mornings. Whether it means greeting people at the front door with a smile and giving them the bulletin and acknowledging the Christ in them. Jesus reminded us that whatever we do to one of our brothers, we do for him. And that's another way of saying seeing the Christ in someone else. One of the people that's attending here this morning is stepping out, taking a risk in following this. And he is a homeless man who is going to be going out on the road for 2 years, visiting every county in Indiana to talk about the plight of the homeless and to raise money for charitable organizations and churches who help the homeless. And one of the organizations that he has decided to help is Unity of Indianapolis. And that is, Harry, would you stand up so that we can acknowledge you? Thank you. I didn't know this until recently, but we have about 1,900 people in Indianapolis who are homeless. 1,900 people. That's a lot of people. And some of them are veterans that have served our country and have nowhere to live and don't know where their next meal is coming from. So anyway, in following this mission and living this mission, it's about taking a risk. It's about stretching. I found out this week that there is this situation happening where earthquakes are occurring across the country. I don't know if you read about it, but it started in Nevada, and they had an earthquake out there. And then on Wednesday, Kansas, which is my home state, had an earthquake, as well as Oklahoma. And so this is moving across the country. And they say that, some people say it's about fracking. But what they say is that it's about the stretching of the crust of the earth. Stretching of the crust. And when you stretch that crust, it can shake things up a bit. And that's what happens when we shake up our lives. When we see things differently and we step out in faith to do something that may seem almost impossible, but we decide to do it anyway. It can shake us up a little bit and stretch us, but that's part of growing. So, what is yours to do as part of supporting this vision and this mission? What is yours to do? That was something that Reverend Ron asked us last Saturday. He asked us to all make a commitment and to write down our next bold step. Bold in terms of supporting this. So, what is yours to do? What is your next bold step? In a minute, I'm going to give you a chance to write that down. But right now, what I'd like to do is show you a 4-minute videotape of a man who did take a bold step and just see where that led him. So could we go ahead and show that?
At various times in our lives,
Good girl.
many of us find ourselves searching,
That's a good girl.
sometimes in tempting.
When I found out that I had cancer, they told my family to go ahead and start planning my funeral.
Diagnosed with stage 4 head and neck cancer 3 years ago,
Oh, nice.
then let go from his propane delivery job.
It's almost like it's a nightmare that you can't wake up out of.
Greg Thomas began passing the hours on long walks from his home,
Oh, look at the sun's coming up, Max.
alone with his dog and his thoughts,
That sky looks beautiful, huh?
on a gravel road that led him here.
And this is where I would come.
Though Greg would have loved to go inside, the doors on the old Catholic church were locked tight.
I tried it more than once.
Built in 1868 by Czech settlers, the church had not been home to a congregation in more than a century.
Really rough shape.
The foundation was crumbling, the paint peeling, but it was here Greg Thomas, crumbling himself, came to pray. Till one day,
Did you say your prayers this morning?
the stranger on the steps
Here.
walked next door.
He went to the neighbor and said he'd like to paint the church. Who does he talk to? So the neighbor sent him to talk to me.
As treasurer of the foundation that keeps up the church cemetery, Don Rinda could barely believe it. Before Greg started work 3 years back, Don had feared that church's days were numbered.
It was a godsend, yes. No doubt about that.
140 years worth of paint, 15 layers thick in places, came peeling off as Greg worked through the lingering effects of the cancer treatments that robbed him of his energy, his saliva glands, and even his teeth.
I've been on a feeding tube now for 3 years, and this is how I feed myself, with the tube and a syringe.
And this is how Greg feeds himself, too.
That was the first thing I wanted to try when I walked in here, was to see if the bells still worked.
Once inside, Greg found intact an 1860s interior,
It was overwhelming. We desperately need a roof.
a dust-covered museum
The floors was all rotted out.
in need of his care.
It's going to be beautiful. It really is.
Greg has no family ties to the church, but to those who do,
Grandpa,
Greg has been a blessing. Heaven sent.
one of the beads on my rosary is reserved for him.
If you, like Blanche Zelmer, believe in the power of prayer, this next part will come as no shock.
You can't help but not think otherwise.
The old church is newly clothed in white,
It's what he's done for me.
and Greg's cancer is now in remission.
This is my way of saying thank you.
Greg can pray inside now whenever he wants, but there's something about this concrete
Yeah,
pew.
there's been a lot of tears shed on these steps. And they've been tears of joy, tears of pain. But tears of blessing too.
Greg Thomas is restoring the old church. That's true. But it's hard to discern who's saving who.
And that's the heart of it.
Jesus said, "Very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater works than these." What he was saying here is not believing in specifically in him so much as the Christ in him, which is in all of us. We have the ability to do great things. Stepping out in faith and seeing God in everyone, and trusting that even though they are not expressing from that truth of who they are, but we can see it. And the more we can see it in others, they will come to see it in themselves, and we will come to see it within ourselves. So what I'd like you to do now is think about what you can do to live this vision, to live this mission, not only in this church, but in the outside community, with everyone you encounter. What are you called to do? And I'm going to have Michael just play a little bit of music for the next minute or so. And please, on the card that you were given, hopefully as you came in today, write down what you are willing to do and sign it. Is anybody missing a card? If you are, please raise your hand so that we can get that out to you. So let's go ahead and take a minute to do that. after you've completed your writing on your card, please pass that to the aisle, the person sitting on the aisle closest to you. And I'd ask our ushers to go ahead and pick those up. The Apostle Paul said, Christ in you, your hope of glory. Christ in you, your hope of glory. So are you ready to express from that Christ in you? I think you are. I think the 31 people that came this last week saw that and affirmed it, and they're ready to step forward, and I hope you are too. I'd like to close with the words of Marianne Williamson from her book, A Return to Love. And I've made a little change in this to reflect our mission and our vision. See if you can tell what it is. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are centered as God. Your playing small doesn't serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God within us. It is not in just some of us. It is in all of us, in every one of us. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And so it is. Amen.
Come up and our ushers to come forward. Many of you have met Azzy. About a week ago, Azzy had a real scare in her life, and she just wanted to share and thank you for your prayers in that case.
Sorry, I get a little choked up. November 5th was my 20th birthday, and I was downtown, and I got a call from my mother, and my father was in the hospital. He had had a massive heart attack. He was in the cath lab, and they said that every single valve in his
He's got
heart,
his gloves on. My hands get cold. I know.
every single valve in his heart was 100% blocked. And what the cath doctor said was that it was cheesy, the consistency of cheese. They managed to get one cleared out with a stent, and he had a balloon pump. He's been in the hospital now for 11 days, and they said he wouldn't make it the first night. He wouldn't make it the second night or the third night or any of it. He was put on hypothermia protocol to help stop any brain damage because last year he had had a stroke. And they said he was on full life support, and they said he was never going to wake up. They said that to talk to him and say goodbye. And I was sick one day, and I thought, okay, I'll stay home just for today. And I got a call. They took him off of the ventilator, and he stayed alive. He started opening his eyes, and for the past day and a half, he's talking. He's alert. he's alive. He's off the balloon pump. Everyone who knows when I first came here, I scoffed at religion. I went to so many churches. I even went to a Catholic school for the first 3 years. And the churches told me, "What are you doing here? You don't need to be here. You're going to go to hell. Screw you. Go away." And I came here and I thought, okay, it's just going to be the same. They're going to be cool to your face and they're going to talk smack behind your back. I was wrong. I've been coming here for almost 3 years now, and I love it. And I really think that it was unity that saved my father's life.
Love you, Aggie.
I just wanted to say one of the things we do to reach out in service is the Love Train Depot, which the third Saturday of every month distributes food and clothing to those in need in our community. Yesterday was our day for this month. We had about 30 or 35 volunteers here who had prepared a full Thanksgiving dinner for the community. We figure we distributed clothing and food to somewhere close to 200 people yesterday.
And as many of you know, I was off in California this week doing some caretaking for my parents and giving my sister who lives with them a respite of the week. And I did hear that this week at the city council, I know many of the people from the Love Train and from our congregation were there for the city council meeting. They did pass a new measure to open up a new intake center for the homeless in town and get them the resources they need. About the only question they came up with was how to fund it, but they just decided to, what we would say, step out in faith and be willing to help the people in our community. And this is just one of the many things that we are. It's just a base camp for people being out there expressing their spiritual gifts. So take what it is you're going to give today, our tithes and offerings, and just open your heart and pour love into what it is you're giving. If you give electronically on the website under the donation tab, just hold the amount that you give there in mind. And pour your love into it. And let's say the affirmation on the screen together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, all that I receive, and I am grateful.